Hello and welcome to the demo video for the accountant lead tracker and quote. I get asked to do a lot of kind of pricing spreadsheets where people want to put all their prices in the background and be able to make selections and data entry that then calculates a price for them that they can, their sales teams can use and that kind of thing. And accountants are no different. There are software packages that kind of do this, but some of them go into massive detail and they're quite expensive to run each month. So I've actually made this product, which is a simpler version of some that I've done in the past, and obviously therefore can sell it as a standard product. So I'll show you how it works. It is specifically for accountants. But if you're watching this and if you're an accountant and you want something more complex, or if you're watching this and you're thinking, well, this might be useful for my business, I'm not an accountant, do get in touch because I do make a lot of these spreadsheets custom made. But this one, as I said, is a fairly straightforward version for accountants. So let me explain how it works. You don't need to do anything on the intro and setup tab, but the biggest kind of setting up here and the thing that needs the most explanation is the prices and settings tab. So obviously you want to set this up according to your prices. I've put in some dummy stuff here so we can get an idea, but please don't take anything here as kind of gospel. You need to set this up as far as how you want to do it. I'll go through the settings tab piece by piece because I think it's the most important. First of all, payroll, number of employees with no auto-enrollment pension or with auto-enrollment pension. Those are obviously things you need to consider when you're doing the processing, and then a monthly processing fee. So this is obviously overall for everyone. So if you've got, you can put those figures in, and then later on you'll be able to select how many employees with no auto-enrollment, how many with auto-enrollment, etc. Bookkeeping, greater than or equal to 0. So this will basically be 0. Up to 99 transactions will cost 300, 100 up to 199 transactions would cost 400, etc., etc. So it does say greater than or equal to, but obviously if there's a greater number, it will use that one. If you go over 1500, there is kind of a cap, and that's the most that it will charge. So you've got your bookkeeping you can set up based on the number of transactions and the price. You'll see these little green ticks down the side. That just means everything's correct. So for example, if you went and put in, for example, the letter A in there, it's going to give you a red cross because it doesn't recognize that as a value, that kind of thing. So you can set up your year end is the same, but based on the turnover, and you can put in the price for the year end value. So that stuff down the left hand side is relatively straightforward. I would imagine you probably know more about that than I do. I've also got the staff position. So you can put the staff names or positions. So you can put, for example, director, junior staff, senior staff, etc. if you've got a big organization. Or else if you've only got 2 of you and you want to specify, Bob or Jill or whoever's going to do it, that's fine. You can do it either way. Just change it at the bottom here. So if you're listing people's names, a selected person, and if you are putting in positions, a selected position, that just changes the wording on the quote. But essentially, this is for meetings. So what you'll be able to do is you'll be able to do the year end, etc. You'll be able to say, well, how many meetings do you want? Because you might have some clients who want to meet every month. You might have some clients who want to meet every quarter. You may have some clients that only want to meet once a year and only want an hour of your time. So you can actually put in the selections how many times you want to meet and who that meeting is with, whether it be, as I said, staff or positions. State of the bookkeeping. This is the percentage of the year-end value. So I'm obviously aware that you might get someone who's going to drop off a whole bag of invoices in a shoebox, and it's going to get someone else who gets you to do the bookkeeping, and you're going to get someone else who provides you with bookkeeping, but that is to a standard that you can do the year-end relatively straightforward. Which is a relatively straightforward job. So what you can do is bookkeeping supplied by us. So for example, you can put 90%. So what that will do is that will work out the year-end value and take 90% of it. So if you did a year-end of over 150 grand and you said it was 1,000, but the bookkeeping supplied by you, then that would then charge at 900. So you can put in a percentage. It doesn't have to be less than 100. You can put in 100% there. If these are the leanest prices you've got, you can put in 100%. But then what happens if they send in good quality bookkeeping? And what happens if they send in bad quality bookkeeping? So in other words, the shoebox method. So what you can do here is you can say, for example, it's 90% of this value. If we do it, it's 100% if they bring in decent quality. So these prices are based on decent bookkeeping quality, but we charge them 120 if it's bad. Alternatively, you can have this price as the bad price and have good quality as 90 and supply price as 80%. It all depends how you want to approach it. Standard meeting length, 2 hours. That's just so that would appear in the drop-down list, but you can obviously edit that later on when you come to meeting length, but you can just put in the standard meeting. These are the meetings that they would have with these staff members throughout the year. I'll come back to this in this table in a minute, but let me just go down the right-hand side here first, because these are they're important, but not particularly problematic. Days until follow-up is due. The spreadsheet will warn you when you've sent out a quote to follow up, so you can just put how many days. These are all days, and I can't recall now. I don't think they're work days. I think it's all days. So just put in how many days between the quote and follow-up, and it'll warn you to do it. The last quote number, the spreadsheet will give you the next number in sequence each time for the new quotes. So if, for example, you wanting to start the spreadsheet, but you're already on quote number 1582 or whatever, you can put in 1582 here, and then the next quote will generate, it will be 1583. If you're starting this from scratch and you want to start to quote number 1, then just stick a 0 in there. This is the main quote header and the services header. So if we have a look on the individual quote, there's a main quote header and there's a services header there. So you can just change, you can edit those. And then there's an introduction text. If we're going to have a look at the quote, there's an intro text there. That one you can edit here. And at the footer, there's very small text. The quotes down at the bottom, there's this text here. So you can change that to over here. There are 3 types of charges, which we're going to get to over here. This is just on the quotes. We'll see later on, it groups the charges into groups. So you can kind of categorize these charges if you want to. You can enter up to 3. You can just put one thing of other charges and just select them all as other charges if you want to. You can break them down. So you can put, for example, advisory services or management services or HMRC or whatever you want to call them. You can essentially just type in 3 different types of charge here, and whatever you type in there, you'll have as drop-down options here, and you can categorize them. That's all. If you do change one of these, this will turn red. You just need to go and reselect it again. The VAT rate, that's just for the invoice to know what VAT to add on. And then the minimum annual charge. So this means that if you get someone who comes on board who just has very, very minimal services, and the minimum charge, you can set this so that it will take it up to that regardless of what the other costs are, if you do have a minimum charge. All right, the middle table. We've obviously discussed payroll, we've discussed bookkeeping, we've discussed year-end, so we've got all of that, those calculations, but now there are a lot more services that accountants offer other than those 3. So you can actually almost create a service within reason over here. So you can type in whatever the service name is that would appear on the quote. You can select what category it's in, one of those 3. You can put the price without bookkeeping, and you can put the price with bookkeeping. Now, some of these, it doesn't matter whether you've done the bookkeeping, in which case you can just leave it blank. Others, you might put a 0 price with bookkeeping because it's included in the bookkeeping package. Other times you might have one which is just less money if you've done the bookkeeping and more if you've done if you haven't. So you can decide if you want to put anything in there. If it's the same price, regardless, then just leave it blank. If it's different, then either put in a 0 if it's no charge, or put in the value if it's reduced, if you do the bookkeeping. The cost period as well, is this per month, is it per quarter, is it per half year or per year? So you can select how often this thing gets charged. That will then help with the pricing when it knows how many months to charge for. And then the last column is multiplied by. So there's various options in here. You've got your auto-enroll staff, non-auto-enroll staff, CIS staff. This stands for sole traders and directors. or you've got auto and non-enrollment, so these two together, or all staff excluding director, which are those three together, or all staff and the director, which are essentially the first four all added up together, because it's the spreadsheet's going to ask you for these numbers so you can calculate how many staff there are, because you may have services that are reliant on the number of staff. So you can then put in a value and say, well, that's actually per staff member. And then you can say which of the staff you want to include in that by selecting in the drop-down list. That will help you to be able to create other services that you can then multiply by whichever number of staff. If you don't multiply by anything, if it's a flat rate throughout the year, regardless of how big the organization is, then you can just leave that blank. And that is your settings tab. You keep that up to date. That's obviously your pricing. This is what it will use to work out all your costings. So you want to make sure this is up to date, and you want to make sure this is customized for you so that you are confident that the prices are correct. Once you've done that, let's move on to the other tabs, and I will show you how to do it. You've got two red tabs, the individual price calculation and the list of leads. So the list of leads is ultimately where the data is going to end up. And that's all in columns of all the various bits of data that we need to include. I'm not going to go through it here. I'm rather going to go through it on the individual price calculation, because what the individual price calculation tab is if you're actually sitting with the client and you want to fill this in, if you look talking to them over Teams or Zoom or whatever, and you actually want to fill it in alongside with them, you obviously don't want to pull this one up with all your other client quotes in and dates and prices and all the rest of it. So you can then pull up the individual price calculation, and you can type the exact same information in here with the selections of what services they want. This will then populate with prices when it's complete. You can have a look at the individual quote that you can see. And when you've finished, you can just simply come over here. You can copy this data. You can come back to the list of leads, paste values, and you'll paste all of that into the correct column at the bottom there. So you can enter it directly here. If you're not dealing with a client directly, you can come and enter it here. All of this has got the correct drop-down list of the options, so you can come and enter it here. Alternatively, you can enter the exact same information here. So if the company's named ABC Limited, for example, you can see it starts a countdown. It's telling you how far into it you are. Contact name, Bob, contact number. If you put in any number, it formats it as a mobile number, or you can type in the number with spaces and it'll reformat it. You can put in the contact, the email address. These two cells here, I haven't put in the names here because I didn't want to draw attention to them. If you have a look on the list of leads, you'll see when you get to that point, the contact email, you've got these dates, which it doesn't show, but you've got the first period discount and the ongoing annual discount. So once it generates the quote, you can give the client a discount. You can put that in and actually say, well, for example, here, if we take that 1,000 out, you should be paying for the first period, the value of the first year, 32,090, but we're going to give you £1,000 discount, and then it takes that value off there. So you can give someone a discount, but it doesn't say discount here. If I were to put in 1,000 there, then the name first period discount pops up. So I've left it in blue and haven't put the word there so that, it doesn't draw attention to people that there could be a discount and then they go, where's my discount? But it is there if you want to fill it in. Proposed start date. So this is obviously when the services are going to start. So if, for example, these are going to start in September 2023, and it knows when the service is going to start, and then it says when is the year end, so you put in the year end so that it can calculate the period for the first year, etc. Number of employees not on auto enroll. So if you say, for example, they've got 4, number of employees on auto enrollment, they've got 4. Number of CIS, you can put it in. If they don't have any, you can put in a 0. Number of sole traders and directors, 2. Number of bookkeeping transactions per month, 850. And annual turnover value, whatever it might be. Now, these ones are blue because at the moment it doesn't say will quality bookkeeping be provided, because you haven't actually selected bookkeeping. You need to select at least one service to obviously trigger this. So if you do select bookkeeping, for example, that means that you are going to be taking it. And for example, year end, then it asks you for year end number of meetings per year. Let's just say they want to have 1 meeting per year, and number of hours, it's a standard meeting of 2 hours. And who do they want to meet with? One of the directors, for example. Now, in theory, this quote's ready to go. It gives you the price, but you can obviously select other services. So you might just go through here and you may say, well, they want management accounts, for example. Now, in the payroll, it's ongoing service, bookkeeping year in its ongoing service, but you might find they might just want a cash flow forecast, for example, just for the first year, or they might want a business plan just for the first year, and they don't actually want it reoccurring, or whatever the case might be. If that is the case, you can say, for example, select the 1. And what that 1 means is they just having that cash flow forecast for the first period, not thereafter for every 12 months thereafter. If they say, for example, they want management accounts, whatever, every year, then you select that as reoccurring. So some of these will have a reoccurring or just one-off, whereas the first 3, then they need to be reoccurring regardless. So once you've selected the services that they've got, it says quote complete, check blue cells and proceed. The blue cells obviously optional. So this will quality bookkeeping be provided. If the client asks about that and you say, well, hang on, if I tick this box, I need good quality bookkeeping from you. If they can't commit to that, then leave that unchecked. If you leave it unchecked, it will use the bad bookkeeping provided. If you select it, it will use good bookkeeping provided. However, if you've selected bookkeeping here as a yes, then it doesn't matter what you select here, it's going to select that it's in-house bookkeeping. So you only really, sorry, there's bookkeeping here. You only, if you select that, you don't need to do anything here. If you leave this unchecked, then this will then mean that it's bad bookkeeping, and if you select yes, it means that you've got bookkeeping. But as I said, if you do come and select the bookkeeping, then it doesn't matter what you've put in here, it is immaterial. And that will then give you the price. So it'll give you the full price. These are for the first 8-month period. For the first year, these are for usual 12-month period. That's the full price. That's inclusive of that. That's per month. That's per month inclusive of VAT. And as I said, if you now take this, if the, sorry, before you do that, once you fill this in, you can then click on the individual quote. It lays it all out for the person, standard charges, default charges, what they are per year, etc. And it gives you a breakdown as per the other one. It tells you what, as per the individual price calculation, it tells you all the details that it's used to base this quote. So if they come back later on and go, hang on, why has your quote gone up? You can look down here and you can say, well, hold on, you said you've got 8 employees, but you've actually got 15, or whatever the case might be. The only other thing on here is if you come to this cell here and select that, it just grays the cell, because you can insert a logo into the cell. So it just shows you where the borders are for the logo, so you don't go over some of this text. And then you can just clear the gray away once you've finished. So that will be where you'll be able to save this as a PDF, a 1-page PDF, and you can obviously send that over to the client. Once the client's accepted it, or even if they haven't accepted it, what you can do then is you can come and you can select all of this. Once you've finished with a meeting with them, you can go to the list of leads and you can right-click and you can paste values, and it pastes all those in the correct cell. And what this says is this one tells you to send a quote. So you can send a quote in, the quote was sent today, you can put the value in, and then it'll tell you when to flag up. Let me just clear this for now. This will then serve as a kind of a reminder. So this one's telling you to send the quote because there's no quote date put in. If you were to put the quote date in, these ones, for example, let's just say we sent this quote on the 1st of January 2023, and we didn't have any acceptance, so it hadn't been accepted yet. This would then alert you to a follow-up. So what you'd then be able to do is you can come in and say, well, date of follow-up, I followed up today, and then it goes away again, and it doesn't remind you until you come around for another 20 days. So this acts as a kind of a CRM. So you can see at the top of the headers, that's the quote, details of discounts, follow-up and conclusion, etc. So if they accept, you simply come and select today's date and acceptance. If they decline, select it into decline, and then it'll change the action here. All the accepted ones, what you can then do is you can then just come and simply copy all of this across to here, right click, copy, and you can move to one leads, for example, right click here, paste values, not normal paste, paste values, then you paste the data across here. Once you've pasted it across here, you can go back to the list of leads, right click, clear contents, and you clear all of that out, and then you can just resort by the number to put back into number order. That means you can actually clear stuff off of here into the won leads or lost leads. If something's taken too long and the person's just not getting back to you and you figure it's gone stale, you can do the same process into the stale leads. And putting them into the respective tab will mean that the spreadsheet will still use some of those calculations to give you some overviews, but you can kind of clear this main list here. Anyone who's on this list of leads, once you put them on here, you would then go back to the individual price calculation. I've put all these in a row, so you can just simply select those and select those, right click, clear contents. And when you do that, it clears all of this ready for the next client. And then if you then, once you've cleared this and you're on the next client, if, for example, one of these clients that you've already quoted comes back to you and wants something adjusted, you can adjust it on here. And then you can go to the database quote. And the database quote is exactly the same as the first quote, except now all you do is you enter a number that's on the database and it pulls up that quote. So that comes from this list of leads page rather than the individual price calculation. But it's exactly the same layout and template. You can save that as a PDF and send it off to them. If you're entering the values here, some of them obviously are missing, like, for example, these dates won't be in there because you didn't fill them in, etc. The other thing is all of these values here, if you fill this in manually, when you get to these values, what you need to do is actually click on it and it'll tell you what that value is. So once you fill this in here, so if we go to one of these top ones, for example, if these were clear, when you got here, if this was clear, for example, when you get here, it'll say, please fill this in, it goes yellow, and you simply select the value that it gives you. It'll tell you what all these prices are. You just have to select any cells that turn yellow when you're doing a new one. When you're doing an individual price calculation, it calculates them in the background and just pastes them in. But when you're doing when you're typing it in here, it's different because you've actually got to go and select it. If you change the prices, so if we came here, for example, and said this has gone up to £6.50, and you go back to the list of leads, you'll see these have gone a light yellow. So what that means is that these prices are now actually outdated. So you can either, these will turn yellow as well to warn you. You can either leave them, or you can actually go and adjust these by reselecting the new price. It's up to you, but it goes a light yellow just to warn you that those prices are in fact now outdated and you need to do something about that. That's the reason why I had these enterings so that the quotes didn't automatically update when you change the prices, so you could actually go and adjust it manually if you wanted to, or you could leave it at the old prices if you wanted to. So now we've covered the intro and setup, we've covered the individual price calculation and the quote, we've covered the list of leads, this database, the archive tabs, prices and settings, and that database quote, which leaves two more, the dashboard and the service report. The dashboard is just an overview of all the stuff that you've got going on. So down here, it shows you list of leads and price settings, all okay. If you were to go to the price settings, and as we did last time, change something there and it's not a value, if you go back to that dashboard, it gives you a red one there, which essentially says that there's one red alert on the prices and settings. So if you went back and changed it, and you went back to the dashboard, all okay. So those are just alerts to data that might be missing or incorrect. This gives you a total, so we can see that there are 3 accepted quotes on the list of leads at the moment. You might see there's one that's complete. You might sorry, the missing or incorrect data. So you need to complete this one. Then one that you might need to complete. There might be some that you need to do a quote or send a quote or follow up or whatever. So these tasks will all flag up here on the dashboard and how many have been declined and then the rest. So you know to go, hang on, there's 4 that I need to do a quote, or I need to do 3 follow-ups today, or whatever the case might be. This gives you a list based on the 12-month values, how many active leads, accepted declines, what the count is, what the value is, the total value, and the percentage. So I can see here that at the moment, 100% of the leads on the list of leads are accepted, and that's 3 of them, and a total value of 56,581 for a 12-month period. I can also see in the archive tabs, and I can also see on the accepted on the list of totals, the archive plus the list. It gives me the totals. Here I can see a financial breakdown. So this actually puts it into the month when they were quoted. So obviously your more recent months, you might have more active leads, and the older ones might be more accepted or declined or stale. But you can just see which month, because it's I've put in an end month here, because you've only put data in for July and August, it only shows those 2 months. As I enter more data, it will expand this period up to 12 months. And you can override these dates here, so you can see a different 12-month period. But these dates here that you enter, you could, for example, have a 2-year period if you had enough data to support it, but only the last 12 months show up on this graph, and this graph below is a total of the one above. Here we can see the average number of days between quoted and accepted decline. There's just a bit of useful information for you. And then the average prices per lead. So what's the average price of an active lead, a stale lead, an accepted lead, etc. And these are average of all the leads. So you can just see some average prices of what you're quoting. Just some useful information for you. So that dashboard updates automatically. And then the last thing is a service report, which might be useful to you. You might not use this, that's fair enough. It lists all the services that you offer. So the payroll, bookkeeping, and the year end, as well as all the others that you set up on that table in the prices and settings tab. It tells you how many are active, how many have been won, how many have been lost, how many have been stale, and what percentage this is. So that 100% is just that this is 100% of that total. And then the services. So in other words, 66.7% of your quotes have included Xero, QuickBooks, Sage, Setup, etc. So you can see which services are more popular, and you can see if you're winning most of them or losing most of them. If a service, for example, is only included in 10% of the quotes, and 100% of them have been lost, maybe you need to readdress that service and decide whether you need it or whether it's overpriced or whatever the case might be. So this is just something useful for you to see later on as a kind of a report on which services have been used and how popular they are, so that you can see what you need to relook at. So yeah, quite a long demo video, but I hope that it's been useful. I wanted to be as thorough as possible in going through this. And yeah, if you are using the spreadsheet and you've got any questions, drop me an email. I'll be happy just to answer them. If you find any issues or errors with it, please do let me know and I can fix those. But yeah, I really hope that this helps you. I hope that it helps you to get some prices together and get your thoughts together on how you do your costings, and help you save a lot of time and effort and frustration. And yeah, if you need something like this more bespoke, do get in touch. But otherwise, I wish you all the best with your pricing. Thank you and goodbye.